Okay. Sorry for the delay in live streaming, everyone. Hare Krishna. So now I can switch this. Maharaj, did you have any comments so far on this?
Yeah, you can say something. Not much. Om Jnana Tmidantasya Kinanjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gudave Namo Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutile Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavani Vashtati Deshatani. Prabhupada's, it's significant here, Prabhupada's comments about preaching. This is realized knowledge spoken from personal experience. Like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada went to America. He didn't have any infrastructure or big circle of supporters, but he met some people and made friends and spoke from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita as it is, chanted Hare Krishna, and things developed. This Prabhupada tells us a story about a businessman whose son was asking for an inheritance or asking for asking for some startup capital to start a business, and a man motioned out to the street where there was a dead rat. And he said, "There's your startup capital," because the government was, I guess, there was trying to prevent plague, and so they were giving so much, giving a few paisa for a dead rat. Per rat, you get something. So the son, he collected the rat, sold it. With the money, he got something else, something else, something else, and built up a huge business. So he had essentially no startup capital, but he, just from nothing, he built it up. Of course, that's a business point of view. The devotee, but in a similar way, he may have no material startup capital, but he has so much spiritual wealth. He can go anywhere, meet people, present Krishna consciousness, and by Krishna's mercy, sooner or later there'll be some response, something will happen. And even if nothing happens, of course, Krishna is pleased, he's trying to do something. But generally, if we try to do something, Krishna will help us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj. I so much enjoy hearing you speak on these points because it's nice, especially to hear the strategy behind the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let's see. So I'll continue to read verses, and then we'll get to one with the purport again soon. Prabhu ke dekite aise sakala sannyasi, Prabhura prashangsha kare sabha Varanasi. Many Mayavadi sannyasis of Varanasi came to see the Lord after this incident, and the entire city praised him. Varanasi Puri Aila Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Puri Saha Sarvaloka Haila Mahadhanya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited the city of Varanasi, and all of its people were very thankful. Laksha Laksha Loka Aise Prabhu ke dekite, Mahabidda Haila Dvare Nare Praveshite. The crowd at the door of his residence was so great that it numbered hundreds of thousands. In text 157, Radhesha Prabhu, love to hear you if you'd care to read this.
Okay. Text 157. Prabhuyabe yanya vishveshvara darshane laksha laksha lokasi mile se stane. When the Lord went to visit the temple of Vishveshvara, hundreds of thousands of people assembled to see him. The important point in this verse is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regularly visited the temple of Vishveshvara, Lord Shiva, at Varanasi. Vaishnavas generally do not visit a demigod's temple, but here we see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu regularly visited the temple of Vishveshvara, who was the predominating deity of Varanasi. Generally, Mayavadi sannyasis and worshippers of Lord Shiva live in Varanasi, but how is it that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who took the part of a Vaishnava sannyasi, also visited the Vishveshvara temple? The answer is that a Vaishnava does not behave impudently toward the demigods. A Vaishnava gives proper respect to all, although he never accepts a demigod to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Samhita, there are mantras offering obeisances to Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, the sun god, and Lord Ganesha, as well as Lord Vishnu, all of whom are worshipped by the impersonalists as Panchopasana. In their temples, impersonalists install deities of Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, the sun god, goddess Durga, and sometimes Lord Brahma also, and the system is continuing at present in India under the guise of the Hindu religion. Vaishnavas can also worship all these demigods, but only on the principles of the Brahma Samhita, which is recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We may note in this connection the mantras for worshipping Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Goddess Durga, the sun god, and Ganesha, as described in the Brahma Samhita. Srishti sthiti pralaya sadhana shakti rekha chayeva yasya bhuvanani bibharti Durga ichchanu rupamapi yasya chicheshtate sa govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. The external potency, Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit, spiritual potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Kshiram yatad dhivikar vishesha yoga sanjayate nahitata prithagasti hetohu ya shambhutam api tata samupaiti karyad govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. Milk is transformed into curd by the actions of acids, yet the effect, curd, is neither the same as nor different from its cause, that is milk. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is a similar transformation for the performance of the work of destruction. Bhasvanyatashva shakaleshu nijeshu teja sviyam kiyat prakatayat yapi tadvaratra brahmaya esha jagadanda vidhanakarta govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion Brahma receives his power for the regulation of the mundane world, just as the sun manifests a portion of his own light in all the effulgent gems that bear such names as Surya Kanta. Yat pada pallava yugam vinidhaya kumbha dvandve pranama samaye saganadhiraja vignan vihantu malamasya jagatrayasya govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda. Ganesh always holds his lotus feet upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all obstacles on the path of progress in the three worlds. Yachchakshuresha savita sakala grahanam raja samasta suramurti rasesha tejaha yasyangyaya brahmati sambhritakala chakro govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. The sun, full of infinite effulgence, who is the king of all the planets and the image of the good soul, is like the eye of this world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time. Maybe I'll pause there. That's a lot of information. We'll save the last two paragraphs for after some comments. The only comment I have perhaps to add in this regard is a story I heard from you, Guru Maharaj, that Srila Prabhupada once, when coming before a temple of Durga Devi, chanted this verse, and you said very feelingly, he had tears in his eyes, Srishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Rekha, recognizing the potency of the Lord and the high position, the elevated position of the demigods. I know in my neophyte mentality, I was going around Govardhan Hill with my father one time, and he was paying full dandavats at every single temple on the way, which you can imagine is, several hundred, even the little like kind of obscure ones on the side. And I started kind of quickening my pace to see if I could deter him from his dandavat program, because I figured it was very time consuming to go all the way down in full dandavats, and I thought if I sped up my pace he wouldn't be able to. But he would just run to catch up to me and then continue paying full dandavats. And I felt very bad after that I was trying to deter him, thinking that I was on some higher platform of understanding, when in reality he was on the higher platform of understanding, that we, never mind the demigods, we should offer our respects to all living entities, recognizing Paramatma's presence in their heart and recognizing their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Never mind the demigods, who are in such an exalted position of service to the Supreme Lord. And of course the Brahma Samhita brings it all back to recognizing that in the Srishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka verse, I love that translation, through the potency of Govinda, this, let's see, the agency, destroying agency. In accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. I like that line. And also in the Ganesh verse, that he is obtaining his power for the function of destroying all obstacles on the path from Govinda. So that is the position. That's it for my input, Maharaj, if you have something.
Good. Nice.
We have in the chat something from Praveen Krishna Prabhu. He says, before meeting the Lord, Prakash Ananda was criticizing the Lord. But how is it that at the first meeting he was so respectful to the Lord? Who was the effulgence good enough to change his heart?
Yes. It's described that by effulgence means that by the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was, Prakashananda was especially impressed by the Lord's effulgence. After all, the Mayavadis are, but he was impressed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's effulgence. So, and then by Mahaprabhu's arguments. So by the effulgence of the Lord, by the humble behavior of the Lord, Prakashananda Saraswati was impressed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had taken a position near the shoes of everyone. So that naturally attracted the a gentle response from Prakashananda. And then by hearing from the Lord and so on, he became changed. So people are influenced. Devotees go somewhere and people see their bright, effulgent faces and their humble behavior, and then hear from them the message of Krishna. They become influenced. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. All right, well, let's read the last two paragraphs. All the demigods are servants of Krishna. They are not equal with Krishna. Therefore, if one goes to a temple of the Panchopasana, as mentioned above, one should not accept the deities as they are accepted by the impersonalists. All of them are to be accepted as personal demigods, but they all serve the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shankaracharya, for example, is understood to be an incarnation of Lord Shiva, as described in the Padma Purana. He propagated the Mayavada philosophy under the order of the Supreme Lord. We have already discussed this point in text 114 of this chapter. Tandra dosha nahi tingho anya karidasa. Shankaracharya is not at fault, for he has thus covered the real purpose of the Vedas under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Lord Shiva, in the form of a Brahmana, Shankaracharya, preached the false philosophy of Mayavada, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu nevertheless said that since he did it on the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there was no fault on his part. Tandra dosha nahi. We must offer proper respects to all the demigods. If one can offer respects even to an ant, why not to the demigods? One must always know, however, that no demigod is equal to or above the Supreme Lord. Ekla Ishvara Krishna Arasabhabhritya. Only Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all others, including the demigods, such as Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Goddess Durga, and Ganesha, are his servants. Everyone sees the purpose of the Supreme Godhead, and what to speak of such small and insignificant living entities as ourselves. We are surely eternal servants of the Lord. The Mayavad philosophy maintains that the demigods, the living entities, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are all equal. It is therefore a most foolish misrepresentation of Vedic knowledge. Whenever I see that verse, Ekala Ishvara Krishna Arsabha Bhritya, I always think of that verse, Bhrityasya Bhritya iti mam smara lokanata. Wait, I missed the line. It says the word Bhritya appears, I think, seven or eight times. Tvad Bhritya Bhritya Paricharaka Bhritya Bhritya Bhrityasya Bhritya iti mam smara lokanata. So yeah, the more times removed, the more times we can become the servant of the servant of the servant. We see this so many times in Shastra. Lord Shiva is instructing. It's not, or Krishna is instructing. The servant of my servant is even more dear to me. So it's quite sweet.
Thank you, Radhesha Prabhu. We'd love to hear from you, Maharaj, if you'd have any points to share on this end of the purport.
Nothing to add. Nice verse. Bhritya, Bhritya.
Praveen Krishna Prabhu says, in many ancient temples in India, there are other deities along with the Lord, like Puri, Tirupati.
King means king with his entourage.
When I was reading this verse, I was considering how, Prabhupada at the very beginning of the purport brings up the question of why it was that the Lord himself was visiting, or that Vaishnavas do not generally visit a demigod's temple, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. But, considering who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, he has a very different relationship with Vishveshvara than we do. So he's we can't imagine what his motive was, but he's seeing him like one of his dear servants, or whereas we might become confused depending on our cultural context. All right, so text 158. Suchara Deva Prabhu, are you able to read this evening?
Yes, Prabhu. I'll read text 158.
If you could read until there's a verse with the purport, and then share some thoughts, and we'll go from there.
Okay, Prabhu. स्नान करिते जाबे जाओ गंगा तीरे ताहानी सकल लोके हय महाभीरे. Wherever Lord Chaitanya went to the banks of the Ganga to take his bath, big crowds of many hundreds and thousands of people assembled there. बहुतुली प्रभु बोले बल हरि 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 ध्वनि करे लोके स्वर्गे नृत्य भरी. Whenever the crowds were too great, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood up, raised his hands and chanted Hari Hari, to which all people responded, filling both the land and sky with the vibration. लोकनिस्तारिया प्रभुर चलिते हैला mana Vrindavane Pathaila Sri Sanatana. After thus delivering the people in general, the Lord desired to leave Varanasi. After instructing Sri Sanatana Goswami, he sent him towards Vrindavan. The actual purpose of Lord Chaitanya's stay at Varanasi after coming back from Vrindavan was to meet Sanatana Goswami and teach him. Sanatana Goswami met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after the Lord's return to Varanasi, where the Lord taught him for 2 months about the intricacies of Vaishnava philosophy and Vaishnava activities. After completely instructing him, he sent him to Vrindavan to execute his orders. When Sanatana Goswami went to Vrindavan, there were no temples. The city was laying vacant like an open field. Sanatana Goswami sat down on the bank of the Yamuna, and after some time, he gradually constructed the first temple. Then other temples were constructed, and now the city is full of temples, numbering about 5,000. Um, in these three verses, although in Srila Prabhupada in purport, he talks about Mahaprabhu's interactions with Sanatana Goswami and further how Sanatana Goswami continues his activities. But we can see how the Siddhanta of Mayavad is not only dry in philosophy but also dry in action. So in the same Kashi Vishwanath or Banaras was filling with sadhus and temples and Ganga. Everything was there, but it was all dry and without any rasa in absence of the Lord. And the moment Lord appeared in Banaras, the real ras in Banaras appeared. You can see how after the disappearance of Lord Krishna, Arjun was defeated by cowherd men and all the queens were abducted. And Arjuna there thinks how everything else I have is present, but because Krishna is there, the real beauty, the real strength uh, is actually lost. Certainly in in the city of Banaras, everything was there. There was scholarship, there was shastras, there was Ganga, there was sadhus, there was renunciation, and there was aristocracy. Everything was there, but the only thing missing was the Lord, His name, form, qualities. And therefore, Banaras, despite having all the attributes, was not a real holy place. But after Lord appeared and Lord gave the Siddhanta, He brought in rasa, Banaras became a real place. And Lord filled in life in the air of Banaras and in the lives of sadhus and other individuals living in Banaras. This is one thing that I am trying to understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sushara David Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you. Maharaj, we'd love to hear from you if you'd have something to share on these verses. I think
Nothing to add.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. I would ask Panchatattva Prabhu to read, but last I saw a video of him, he was behind the wheel of a moving automobile. And that
is correct.
That is correct. Yes, indeed. So, Hare Krishna. Please continue. Radhesha Prabhu in the chat says, in this same incident described in more detail in Madhya Lila, my favorite two verses are, and then he gives the two verses, Madhya 17, 144 and 145. I have come here to sell my emotional, ecstatic sentiments in this city of Kashi, but I cannot find any customers. If they are not sold, I must take them back home. I have brought a heavy load to sell in this city. To take it back again is a very difficult job. Therefore, if I get but a fraction of the price, I shall sell it here in this city of Kashi. Thank you, Radhesha Prabhu.
There's a story along with that. In the very early days at 26 Second Avenue, there we had two temples, New York and Montreal, maybe just those two, and well, three, San Francisco. Then there was a World's Fair up in Montreal. The devotees were taking part in some way, and so they wanted a picture that they could have for public display. So they wrote to Jadharani asking for some picture, and Prabhupada said, yes, you could send. Which one should I send? So she was working on a picture of Varaha at the time, painting a Varaha picture. Prabhupada said, you can send that one. But Swamiji, I don't think they'll understand Lord Boar. Prabhupada said, no, you can send. Then he quoted this, cited these verses that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that I've come to Varanasi carrying all these fruits, and if people buy them, I'm ready to sell at a cheap price. But if no one buys, then I'll take them back. Prabhupada said, but everybody bought. So in this way, people we may think people won't understand, but some fortunate people will catch it.
Mm. Mm. Jai. Thank you, Maharaj. And thank you, Radhesha Prabhu. Let's see here. I'll read a few verses here. So 161. Rati diva se lokera shuniko lahala Varanasi chadi Prabhu aila nilachala. Because the city of Varanasi was always full of tumultuous crowds, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after sending Sanatana to Vrindavan, returned to Jagannath Puri. Ei lila kahiba age vistara kariya, sankshepe kahilan ihan prasanga paiya. I have here given a brief account of these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, but later I shall describe them in an extensive way. So then text 163. Ross Prabhu, are you able to read this evening? Or are you in a moving vehicle like so many of us are? Not now. Okay. Moving vehicle, perhaps. Priyanka Mataji, are you able to read this evening? Text 163.
Yes, Manju.
Thank you.
Panchatattvarupe Shri Krishna Chaitanya Krishna Nama Prema Diya Vishnu Prailadanya. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates of the Panchatattva distributed the holy name of the Lord to invoke love of Godhead throughout the universe, and thus the entire universe was thankful. Here it is said that Lord Chaitanya made the entire universe thankful to him for propagating the Sankirtan movement with his associates. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has already sanctified the entire universe by his presence 500 years ago. And therefore anyone who attempts to serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sincerely by following in his footsteps and following the instructions of the Acharyas will successfully be able to preach the holy names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra all over the universe. There are some foolish critics who say that Europeans and Americans cannot be offered sannyas. But here we find that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to preach the Sankirtan movement all over the universe. For preaching work, sannyasis are essential. These critics think that only Indians or Hindus should be offered sannyas to preach, but their knowledge is practically nil. Without sannyasis, the preaching work will be impeded. Therefore, under the instruction of Lord Chaitanya and with the blessings of his associates, there should be no discrimination in this matter. But people in all parts of the world should be trained to preach and given sannyas so that the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement will expand boundlessly. We do not care about the criticism of fools. We shall go on with our work and simply depend upon on the blessings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, the Panchtat. So here Sri Prabhupada is using the word entire universe. That if we follow the footsteps of our Acharya sincerely, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's footsteps sincerely, we can spread the chanting of holy names throughout the entire universe, not just single planet. This is quite striking. When we try to preach without any motive, just with the desire to please the Lord, following in the footsteps under the guidance of spiritual master, the success is sure to follow. Hare Krishna. I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for reading and commenting. Maharaj, we'd love to hear from you on these points.
Prabhupada mentions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has sanctified the whole universe. That means there'll be candidates for Krishna consciousness wherever one goes. A devotee may go anywhere to spread Krishna consciousness, and somewhere he'll find some receptive people, people who are already there waiting to receive the message. We just have to broadcast it, and people will come. We could take it that devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or preachers of Krishna consciousness have also been planted all over the universe. There are people ready to take to Krishna consciousness and people who are ready to spread Krishna consciousness. They just need to be activated. I'm reminded of credit cards where you're pre-approved and you just accept the card and click somewhere or sign something, and you're already in action. So there are already pre-approved candidates for Krishna consciousness, pre-approved preachers, practically speaking. They just need to be activated. And that's the business of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees, especially those who are retired from family life can travel and preach in this way. Or even the householders may sometimes, or well, even locally or wherever they go, they can spread the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Tulsi Priya, go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj's comments reminded me of something I noticed when we were around, still in Gainesville in the Krishna house. Preaching was going on, and that's pretty localized to the Gainesville area. They would preach at the university, and the students would come to the Krishna house. And I was always amazed because you'd meet these. I'm thinking specifically of both boys and girls, but certain young men that I had met. They started off completely ignorant. They didn't know thing one. And they would just be going to classes in the morning. And, when I joined, there was the culture of you go out and you distribute books, and the brahmacharis were going on the road and everything. But it wasn't like that at the Krishna house. And yet, after just a few months, there was always one or two young men who were going to class regularly, who were reading the Bhagavatam, and they got it in their heads that they wanted to go out on the road and distribute books. I was like, and they would just be so fired up, and they would be so ready to just go and do it. It was like I felt like I was having a flashback to 20 years earlier when I lived in the Boston ashram, and book distribution was so huge there, And I said, where did you get the idea to do this? Because it wasn't being pushed there. I said, where do you get the idea to do that? And they said, just reading Prabhupada's books. And so it's like Maharaj says, they were activated. They something was waiting in them, and it just needed a little bit of exposure. And it was like old times all over again. It was really amazing.
I have a small comment about this verse also, if that's okay. I did a search. I'm not used to seeing the word danya translated as thankful, so I did a quick search, and it only is translated that way 4 times in all of our books. And two of those instances occur in the past 5 verses. A few verses ago, it said that everyone in Varanasi was Mahadhanya, very thankful. And then in today's verse, it says thankful. Almost exclusively, it's translated as glorious. And so I found that kind of interesting that, the two aren't mutually exclusive, that what makes the world glorious is gratitude for spiritual knowledge. Otherwise, even if you're extremely opulent, if you have all good qualities, but you lack gratitude for Krishna and his devotees, then there's nothing glorious about it. But I found that quite interesting, that gratitude and glorious would be translations of Danya.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I noticed a particular sentence Prabhupada has in this purport. I wondered if Maharaj might have anything to say additionally about it. He says several things about sannyas, but then he specifically says, without sannyasis, the preaching work will be impeded.
The sannyas offers facility, first of all. The sannyasis are free to travel to preach. They're not held back by family responsibilities. So that in itself is significant. Also, at least in the Indian context, sannyasis are given great respect, and that in itself helps spread the Sankirtan movement. Yeah, those two things, I think. Otherwise, in the West, sannyasi, not sannyasi, it's not much considered. But in India particularly, the sannyasis receive great respect from the members of the public.
Right. I'm thinking also, Maharaj, along the lines of Prabhupada's own history, that he started in New York in 66, 65, 66, and then only when he went to India, I think that weren't the first two sannyasis, Kirtanananda and Achyutananda, and that was specifically because he was wanting them to do something in India. Yeah.
Although he sent Kirtanananda back to America, actually. So, yes. I won't say more about what Prabhupada's thoughts might have been. But yes.
All right. Prabhu Krishna Prabhu has something in the chat. He says, while conversing with a few residents of Vrindavan, the young members were complaining how so many Bengalis have settled in Vrindavan, and now Videshis also. But the elder member instructed them that it was Baba, Sanatan Goswami, and the Bengali sadhus who have brought these ancient temples in Vrindavan, and we shall be eternally indebted to them. The young members then seemed respectful. Thank you, Prabhu Krishna Prabhu. Tulsi Priya, you new hand?
Yes, I had a question for Maharaj. So the idea of sannyasis being required to preach, obviously that's the case, and especially on the institutional level. And he also noted that it's not so important in the West as it is in India and the East. And I was just wondering, can we say, obviously in the usual sense it's sannyasis, but are we talking more of the commitment to total surrender and detachment? Because I'm thinking of, let's say, like when Prabhupada sent the married devotees, Malati, Mukunda, Prabhus, and all of them, and they even had a baby with them, and yet they were completely fired up, and they got a lot done. It wasn't, it didn't last for, for years and years on at a time as sannyasis do when they're preaching, but still, it was a potent moment.
Both things are there. Prabhupada comments how they did better than sannyasis. His Guru Maharaj had sent sannyasis to London. Somehow they couldn't accomplish much. But these householders spread Krishna consciousness like anything. So Prabhupada appreciated that and made that point. On the other hand, here I don't think he means generally renounced people. I think he means sannyasis. That is to say, Tridandi sannyasis, people who formally accepted the renounced order. So both things are there.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have time for, let's read one more verse. Let's read text number 164. Tulsi Priya, did you want to read one?
Sure. 164?
Yeah.
Okay. Maturate Pataila Rupa Sanatana Dvisena Patikaila Bhakti Pacharana. Translation. Lord Chaitanya dispatched the two generals, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, to Vrindavan to preach the Bhakti cult. Report. When Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami went to Vrindavan, there was not a single temple, but by their preaching they were gradually able to construct various temples. Sanatana Goswami constructed the Madana Mohan temple, and Rupa Goswami constructed the Govindaji temple. Similarly, their nephew Jiva Goswami constructed the Radha Damodar temple. Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami constructed the Radha Ramana temple. Sri Lokanath Goswami constructed the Gokulananda temple, and Shamananda Goswami constructed the Shamasundar temple. In this way, many temples were gradually constructed. For preaching, construction of temples is also necessary. The Goswamis not only engaged in writing books, but also constructed temples because both are needed for preaching work. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted the cult of his Sankirtan movement to spread all over the world. Now that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has taken up this task of preaching the cult of Lord Chaitanya, its members should not only construct temples in every town and village of the globe, but also distribute the books that have already been written and further increase the number of books. Both distribution of books and construction of temples must continue side by side in parallel lines. So, don't really have much to say except this touches on what Prabhu brought up about the Goswamis establishing temples in Vrindavan where they did not exist before. And when I think about ISKCON, people sometimes complain about institutionalism, but the fact is that there needs to be some kind of structure and infrastructure for a preaching movement. And so, we have temples because they provide a headquarters in every town where preaching is going on, and of course sannyasis are also part of that effort. And it's kind of cynical, and I'm very good at cynicism, but anybody who's read about Srila Prabhupada's activities, no matter what they may feel about institutionalism in general, they have to understand from his desire that these temples be established that it's a good thing. We're in the material world. There's always problems. There's always human nature and human fallibility will always create difficulties and obstacles. But to have a headquarters and a spiritual home in the material world is so important. There's something about going into a temple, especially when you haven't been in one in a long time. You walk in and you smell the incense. There's an aroma. Don't want to be too sentimental about it, but it's a different kind of feeling, and you feel like it's a refuge from the material world. And so, we often get maybe too familiar sometimes and we see only faults, but when somebody's been away for a while, then they really, their appreciation for it gets developed when you go back. That's all. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, anything you'd like to say about this?
What Prabhupada says here is simple, but it's an example of a fundamental instruction. Anyone can understand it, and Prabhupada's making it clear. I want these two things, temples and books. This is how the Sankirtan movement should be spread. We should have temples and we should have books, book distribution. And elsewhere, of course, he'll sometimes say that of the two, the books are more important. But here he doesn't make that point. The temples are needed and book distribution is needed, especially if we only establish temples and we don't have book distribution, then we're missing an essential point. Prabhupada sometimes said the temples are places from which we send out devotees to distribute books. So we shouldn't just be masons, people who construct buildings, but we need to satisfy this other half of the equation. We need to distribute Prabhupada's books profusely. And here Prabhupada also mentions increase the number of books, which in context clearly means write more. Those who think that Prabhupada's books should be the last books, nobody else should write books, are missing this instruction. We should increase the number of books already written, which means Prabhupada's books, and we should write more books. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Oh, Panchatattva Prabhu, you have a hand up.
Yes, my wife Yoganananda wanted to bring up a point regarding the temple's importance. On a morning walk, a devotee was asking Srila Prabhupada, if Krishna is everywhere, why are we stressing so much the temple programs and going to the temple? And Prabhupada's immediate retort was, do you see Krishna everywhere? And the devotee had to admit that he didn't. He said, therefore you must go to the temple. You must attend the temple functions. When you see Krishna everywhere, then it is necessarily required. That's it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. All
Can I
right.
ask Marge another quick question?
Hare Krishna.
We are out of time.
Oh, okay. I'll save it for tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Yeah, please write it down. Save it. Radhesha Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, I have a tune that just jumped into my head during this class that I used to sing with my friends Nityananda Prabhu and Maharshi Prabhu in Govardhan. So it takes me back to Govardhan. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakaacharya Stotra Shata Shishama Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakaacharya Stotra Shata Shishama Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Shri Caitanya Caritamrta Ki, Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Radhesha Prabhu. Thank you, Tulsi Priya, for the glories of Govardhan screen share. And thank you, Maharaj, especially for being with us on your time zone there in Mauritius, sharing your association. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. And thank you to all.
As previously stated by His Grace Radhesha Prabhu, Sri Caitanya Caritamrta Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Ki Jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari.
Hari
Hari
Bol.
Bol. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.